Okay, so this one's going to be about any kind of square roots of fractions. Okay, and when we're dealing with square roots of fractions, then there's some certain rules that I kind of made up. Okay, and the first rule is to break down the fraction. You got to break down that fraction. Okay, your second rule is going to be to break out the radicals. Okay, or to break down the radical. Okay, so now we're going to break out the. I would say break out the radical because you're taking stuff out. Okay. The tricky rule is getting rid of the radical if it's in the bottom. Okay? If you have a radical in the denominator, you've got to get rid of that radical. So the third rule, if it gets to there, is to get rid of the radical in the bottom. Okay? And the last rule is sometimes after you get rid of that radical that's in the bottom, sometimes it leaves you with having to break down the fraction one more time. Okay? So then at the very end, sometimes you're going to have to break down the fraction one more time. Okay? And so that's it. That's it. There's 4 steps. Most of the time, you'll do it in 2. Okay? Most of the time, you'll do it in 2 steps. Okay? But every once in a while, it'll be 3. And, once in a blue moon, you're going to have to do all 4 steps. I don't even know what this is going to make me do. But we'll step through it. First of all, how many times does 12 go into 36? 2 times? No? Try again. 3 times? Okay? That's okay. So, we've got 12 goes into 36 3 times, right? Okay? So, then what? Well, then we say, hey, 3 from 5 leaves 2. And 4 from 6 leaves 2. Okay? And now, since we broke down the fraction, our next step is to break out the radical. So, I'm going to take any pairs. Now, can I break the 3 down any further? No. So, what I'm going to do is break down the pairs of this 2 go into the x. How many times?
Once.
Once. Okay? How many are left inside?
No.
None. But that 3 is still left inside, so that 3 is there, right? But with the x's, it's just the 1x. It's pulled out, and no x is left inside. So what about the y's? How many y's can we pull out? 2 goes into 2 how many times?
1.
With how many left over?
None.
None. So there's no y's left inside. And that's it. That is done, my friends. Okay? Now, could it have been harder? Could we had... so what we did was we broke down the fraction. Then we broke out the radical. And then we were done. There was no radical in the bottom. Okay? But it could have been different. Right? It could have been different. And so How could it have been different? Let's try real quickly something like 36 x to the 7th y to the 4th over, or actually, let's put the 36 down here and put a put an 8 up here. That's definitely going to give me something weird. And then we'll deal with x to the 3 and y to the 8th. Or let's do y to the 9th. There we go, y to the 9th. Now let's do this. How many times does 8 go into 36? Doesn't, right? So we got to break down the fraction. Okay? So we take that fraction, 8 over 36. Okay? And we look at it a little differently. 8 over 36. And we break it down this way. And we say, hey, what goes into 8 and 36?
2.
Good. How many times? 4 and
12.
18.
3.
4 and 18. Okay?
Yeah.
And then we do it again. 2 go into both of those?
Yeah.
How many times?
2.
2 and
9.
9. Okay? So, now I have my fraction. It's 2/9. Okay? And then I do my x's. 3 from 7, 4. 4 from 9, 5. Okay? Didn't quite break down the way I wanted it to. I probably should have kept the 36 on top, but oh well. Life goes on. So now I will break out the radical. How many times does 2 go into 2? So can I bust out a 2? Right? Can 2 be broken down? Not from a radical form. So therefore, the 2 stays in. Can the 2 go into this 4?
Yeah.
How many times?
2.
2 times. How many left over?
None.
None. So there we go. Can we square root a 9? Can we break the 9 down? And the 9 can be broken down as 3, 3, 3, 1. You're done, and you pull a pair out. So you can pull out 1, 3. With what left inside? No number, right?
No.
So now, how many times does 2 go into 5?
2.
2 times
With 1 left over.
with 1 left over. Okay? So now, what we got to do is get rid of that y. Okay? So when we get rid of this y, we have to do something like that, right? So now, the square root of y times the square root of y, okay? And in this case, I'm going to get x squared times the square root of 2y. And then what is y times y? Or what can I do with the square root of y times the square root of y? It brings out another y, right? So now I have 3y squared y. Now here's the case where if this y squared would have been up here and this x squared would have been down here, then I would have had to break down the fraction one more time, right? The y would have went into that top y. But I wasn't smart enough to do that. So we still have to organize the fraction though, right? We're still kind of breaking it down, and that is y times y is y cubed. So now I've got x squared times 2y times 3y cubed. And now I'm finished. And so, like I said, if these would have been inverted, then I would have had to break that y down one last time. And then we would have had to do that last step, that breakdown, the fraction step. But I guess the breakdown the fraction could be easily said is simplify the fraction. And that's exactly what we just did, is we just simplified that fraction because we had to make that y squared times y into y cubed. Okay? And that, I think, is the best way to look at this. And hey,